Welcome to today's Explainer. We are unpacking some absolutely critical, practitioner-level guidance straight from the Australian government's cybersecurity experts. Basically, we're mapping out the ultimate architect's blueprint for building a high-security IT fortress. If you've been tasked with securing a sprawling network and you just don't quite know where to start, well, this is for you. Today, we're going to master two foundational platforms in modern cybersecurity, SIEM and SOAR. All right, let's dive right in and see how these incredibly powerful systems can totally transform your organization's defenses.
Here is our architectural blueprint for today. We'll be looking at 1. Decoding SIEM and SOAR, 2. The cybersecurity benefits, 3. Navigating implementation challenges, 4. Principles for procurement, and finally, 5. Establishment and maintenance.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Decoding SIEM and SOAR.
To kick things off, I want you to imagine your organization's network is a massive, bustling corporate campus. You've got doors constantly opening and closing, files moving around, and literally thousands of interactions happening every single second. Now, imagine you actually have security cameras recording all of this activity, but the footage is scattered across 100 different closets and nobody is actually watching the screens. That is exactly what an uncentralized IT network looks like. It's chaos. So how do you secure a network when data is just absolutely everywhere?
Well, that is exactly where our first tool comes in, SIEM, which stands for Security Information and Event Management. Think of a SIEM as your centralized security guard control room. It automatically collects and centralizes all those scattered logs from your firewalls, endpoints, and applications. But here's the kicker. It doesn't just store them. A properly configured SIEM actively analyzes this data using specific query languages and predefined baselines to detect unusual activity. It's constantly on the hunt for anomalies that could signal a cyber threat.
And this brilliantly illustrates the difference between our two main concepts today. If the SIEM is the control room spotting the intruder, SOAR, which stands for Security Orchestration, Automation, and Response, is the automated lockdown protocol. While the SIEM handles all that centralized security analysis and alerting, the SOAR automates your response using predefined playbooks. So, if a specific threat is spotted, SOAR can automatically quarantine a system or revoke user credentials. Now, quick caveat here. SOAR never fully replaces your human incident responders. Not at all. Instead, it streamlines the immediate response so your human team can focus on the much more complex problems.
Moving right along to Section 2, the cybersecurity benefits.
So, why go through all this effort? Well, a properly implemented SIEM and SOAR setup really delivers on three core pillars. First up, visibility. By centralizing all this complex data, you meet critical compliance frameworks, like the Essential 8, and you finally get a clear, unclouded view of your environment. Second, detection. Automating your log collection protects the integrity of those logs. That means attackers can't just delete their tracks without you noticing. And third, response. A SOAR platform allows your automated defenses to actually match the incredibly fast speed of modern automated attacks.
Here's where things get really interesting, especially when we talk about how these tools handle advanced threats. Specifically, we're talking about living off the land, or LOTL techniques. This is a nightmare scenario where an adversary sneaks into your network and uses your own legitimate administrative tools, like PowerShell, against you. It is incredibly hard to detect because the tools themselves aren't malware. But because a SIEM establishes a strict baseline of normal user behavior, it can spot the very subtle deviations that give an LOTL attacker away. It doesn't just see that the tool is running, it sees that the tool is being used in a highly suspicious way.
Okay, let's talk about the hard stuff in Section 3, navigating implementation challenges.
Look, one of the biggest dangers, and frankly most common pitfalls of a poorly configured SIEM is alert fatigue. If your system is generating an overwhelming volume of false positives, just constantly crying wolf, your security team will inevitably start ignoring those 3 a.m. pager alerts. And that means delaying or entirely missing real incidents. On the flip side, if your rules are undertuned, you create these dangerous false negatives where a real attack happens and the system just stays completely silent. Finding that perfect balance, it requires constant, dedicated human oversight.
And beyond the alerts, you've got some serious technical hurdles to clear too. You have to normalize unstructured data so completely different systems can actually talk to each other. You need to standardize your terminology. Is it called SRC-IP or source address? You have to resolve time zone differences across all your global logs. And you absolutely must mitigate blind spots. Because if you only deploy forwarders to, say, 10 out of your 12 Active Directory servers, well, your SIEM is completely blind to those other 2. Oh, and a huge warning here. Do not treat your SIEM as just a massive data lake for compliance logging. That is an incredibly expensive mistake that will completely choke your analysis capabilities.
Which leads us nicely into Section 4, Principles for Procurement.
If you look at the source guidance, there's a really helpful direct correlation between your organizational size and your baseline SIEM storage needs. Just to put that into perspective, if you have a smaller team, fewer than 50 staff, you're looking at ideal storage of about 50 to 200 gigabytes. But check out the other end of the spectrum. If you have over 5,000 staff, you need to be planning for anywhere from 1 to 2.5 terabytes of storage. Having this data handy helps immensely when you're budgeting for initial licensing and compute power.
All right, when you're actually ready to procure a system, here are your absolute must-haves. Number 1, you need to define a strict proof-of-concept scope so you don't get trapped by an incompatible vendor down the line. Number 2, try to give preference to data lake architectures where your logs go to a repository first before the SIEM even touches them. Number 3, ensure the tool can correlate multiple sources, and yes, that includes your legacy IT. Number 4, hunt down those hidden ingestion costs. Some vendors will charge a massive premium if you go over your log cap. And number 5, and honestly, this might be the most important, invest in human training, not just the software. You absolutely need skilled personnel to run these platforms, otherwise you've essentially just bought yourself a very expensive paperweight.
Finally, we reach Section 5, Establishment and Maintenance.
The absolute golden rule of setting up a SIEM: baselining. You simply cannot spot the weird, anomalous stuff until you have strictly defined what normal looks like. You can't just flip a switch on a SIEM and expect it to catch bad guys on day one. It just doesn't work like that. It requires weeks of meticulous observation and tuning to establish a solid baseline of business-as-usual activity. If you rush this phase, you run the very real risk of the system accepting malicious activity as normal right from the start.
So how does that translate into establishment best practices? First, you need to implement a strict log retention policy. The guidance suggests retaining security logs for a minimum of 1 year and informational logs for 90 days. Second, actively monitor your system telemetries so you know instantly if a server just suddenly stops sending logs. And third, your SIEM system owner must be integrated into your enterprise architecture or change control boards. Think about it. If IT spins up a brand new cloud server and doesn't bother to tell the SIEM owner, that server becomes an instant, glaring blind spot.
Now, to avoid those astronomical ingestion costs and network bottlenecks we mentioned earlier, you've got to pre-process your logs. You can actually filter out unwanted data at 3 distinct points. Number 1, right at the source, the host device itself, telling it to only send specific relevant log types. Number 2, at the forwarder, which is the replication point, stripping out junk before it travels any further across the network. Or, number 3, right at SIEM ingestion, where the SIEM separates the critical alerts for immediate processing and just sends the routine, informational data straight to cold storage.
But listen, once you're up and running, the job is definitely not over. Cybersecurity is a continuous, active process. It is not a set-it-and-forget-it tool. Ongoing maintenance is absolutely critical here. You need to constantly evaluate your threat detection capabilities as your environment inevitably changes. And frameworks like Mogma can really help structure this. Furthermore, you have to proactively test your SIEM and SOAR against known attacker techniques. Run simulated attacks, like LSS memory dumps, golden ticket exploits, or internal network scanning. You have to guarantee that your true positives are actually firing when you're really under fire.
We have covered a ton of ground in this explainer today, moving from those core definitions all the way into the deep, technical realities of implementing a SIEM and SOAR platform. But I want to leave you with one final, really critical thought to take back to your own environment. If a threat actor is living off the land in your network right now, using your own legitimate tools against you, what blind spots are currently hiding them? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep building those defenses.